Good afternoon everyone and welcome to the Melbourne Aquarium. My name's Sarah and you've come along now. Basically I'm going to be feeding our fish in the lagoon. So I can see you've all sort of stood a little bit back, which is kind of a good idea because I do throw the food in. Sometimes I'm not a very good aim and you don't want to get smelly fish all over you, especially on a hot day. Okay, so this habitat we have here is a lagoon. So hands up if you think it's a freshwater environment. One person, great. Two, excellent. Hands up if you think it's salty. Yep, 1, 2. Can't really see up here. Alright, so everyone is actually correct. So it's pretty much brackish water. And it's a mixture of salt and fresh water. And the animals that we have in here can actually live in many different habitats. So they can actually migrate to estuaries when it comes to their breeding time. And otherwise they may live in freshwater rivers and creeks. So the fish that we have here, does anyone know the name of it? Barramundi, exactly. So these are barramundi, and you find them in tropical and semi-tropical habitats. And within Australia, you do come across them from the Mary and Maroochy river systems in southeastern Queensland, right along the northern part of Australia, and even as far down as Western Australia in Shark Bay. So they're a pretty unusual one, and I'm going to tell you a bit more about them as I start to feed. But I'll just quickly show you the food that I have in here to give them today. So, basically for our barramundi, I've got some fish, or fish heads here today. And this is sand whiting, so that's kind of big chunks of food there. Also there's some smaller food which are little pieces of whitebait. So I might do a bit of a scatter feed and throw some of that to the surface and they'll come up and snatch it. There's also some calamari, if anyone likes squid or calamari. And this one's a bit of a treat, so it's kind of higher in fat content and the animals generally like to eat that. But because all of the fish that we feed out here is actually from the local fish markets and it's defrosted, we don't feed live food to these animals, may lose a little bit of nutritional value. Therefore, there's also some pellets, and that helps to give these animals a really balanced diet and keep them really nutritionally healthy. So I might start by doing a bit of a scatter feed and hopefully be able to see them and their feeding behaviour. So very fast, and they can make quite a loud suctioning sound when they grab the food. So you can kind of hear that snapping. And I might try and demonstrate that a bit better with a bigger bit of fish here. Okay.
Wow.
Bit of a splash. You missed it? Should we do it again? Alright. So pretty impressive when they go to feed. So fish, they do have memories, contrary to what we may think, and they definitely know it's feeding time. Okay, so very fast. Now, the barramundi, they can grow to be a very large fish. On average, maybe about 1.2 metres in size, but they can reach 1.8 metres, so a bit taller than some of our taller people in the audience. And they're quite an unusual fish as well because they begin their lives as boys, and at the age of 4 or 5, happy birthday, you turn into a girl. So it's a little bit unusual, but there are some advantages to having big females, and that is that they can produce a lot of eggs and have a lot of offspring. Yeah, so they all turn. As far as I know, they all turn. Does that sound about right, Cheryl? Yep. So it's usually, I think, also tied into the size. So, and the size that they reach is usually at the age of 4 or 5. Okay. Okay, so these fish, they can live in quite murky environments, so river systems can get pretty muddy and murky. It can be tricky to find their food, so they've also got something that runs along the side of their body called a lateral line. So you may see on these fish a line that runs along the side of the body, and pretty much it's a bit like our ear canal. It's covered in tiny little hairs, and that enables them to pick up on vibrations in the water and probably helps them to find food that's quite murky and quite dark. Okay, so let's gather some of these pellets in as well. So the barramundi, they can live for about 5 to 25 years. And barramundi is an Aboriginal word, meaning large-scale silverfish. So they've always been a very popular eating one. And the Aboriginals used to wrap them in a ginger plant in leaves and cook them in ashes, hot ashes. Has anyone been out and done any fishing for barramundi? They're meant to be quite a popular one to go fishing for, and they're very high in demand as an eating fish within Australia. Pretty much what I've got here. So they get fed once a day, and that's the total amount of food that they'll have. So with our larger ones, quite often we target feed them. So sometimes there's some big ones that will hang out around the back of the exhibit, and it's important that we target feed them, and we try and monitor which ones are eating and how much they're eating as well. That's probably about right. Like, I know it doesn't look too much, but some of our animals don't have to eat every day. Out in the wild, they wouldn't be able to get food every day, so it's sort of, I suppose, trying to replicate that as well. Even downstairs, we've got some really large sharks, and our biggest one's about 3.2 metres. It only has about 1 or 2 bits of fish a week, so it's kind of surprising, but may not necessarily eat heaps of food every day. They are really important commercial fish within Australia. And in Australia we produce around 4,000 tonnes of barramundi each year, but it's not enough to meet the demand. So people love to eat this fish, and naturally it's very good for us. It's good for your cardiovascular system, the fish oils, and really good health food for your brain and development. But naturally, to sort of make enough of this fish to support what people want, there are actually aquaculture farms too. So these fish can be reared in those conditions, but the problem is you might need several kilos of fish to feed the fish to make it grow, so in a way it may be unsustainable. But there are alternatives, so these fish can be fed things like a high protein grain instead of using a sort of fish meal, and in that way it might be more sustainable, and the finishing diet can include the fish oils to make sure that they're really a healthy barramundi. The only problem is with aquaculture as well, these fish can live in quite high densities, but they have been known to eat their other barramundi in there with them up to 2/3 their own size. There are some other animals in this display too, which you've no doubt noticed, and they're freshwater spear-toothed sharks. So we do have 3 of them on display. We're the only aquarium in the world that houses the freshwater spear-toothed sharks, and they're found in northern Australia in the tropical habitat, and they are actually critically endangered. So I suppose lots of different things have contributed to their nature of being endangered. So habitat degradation, pollution, and recreational fishing have decreased their numbers. So I'm not feeding the sharks today. They usually get fed in the morning, and they're quite a timid animal, so they would have been fed quite early this morning. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to feed here. If you've got any questions, feel free to stick around and have a chat. Also, just behind me there's a rock pool area with shells, so if you want to have a touch of some things, you're welcome to. And the next section of the aquarium just continues down the ramp at the back, and it'll take you through to tropical fish, and we've got some sea jellies as well. So So thanks for coming along, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.